y'all to the VRNation Station. We're diving deep into vacation.
Welcome to VRNation's podcast, VRNation Station, the only podcast dedicated to vacation rental professionals across North America. It's not actually true. There are a few, but we're the best. We're your favorite. We're your favorite podcast across North America. I'm Jamie Hansen. I am the Director of Business Development at Covino Property Management way up in Idaho. And with me today is my good friend, Carrie Marissa, and we are going to talk about homeowner acquisition, Carrie's favorite topic. Welcome, Carrie. Thank you for coming on to the podcast. I know it was kind of last minute, so maybe tell folks who don't know you, which probably isn't many in this industry, but maybe tell some folks like who you are, who you work for, and what's your game plan is.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks for having me, Jamie. I'm Carrie Marissa. I'm the EVP of Business Development at the Rentals Company. We have a suite of products from our online travel site, our OTA, but we also invented ZPoint, which is a host of property manager growth solutions. Specifically, one of those pillars is around homeowner acquisition. So I spend the majority part of my week and day talking about homeowner acquisitions and how we help property managers from 2 homes to 5,000 homes grow their business.
Awesome. Well, yeah, sure. I mean, it's funny. Carrie and I, we go back at least since I started in this industry. Carrie has been my crutch, especially at conferences. So he's the guy I go out with because, you can't really tell Carrie's about a foot taller than me. So he keeps me out of trouble. But at any rate, probably one of the best guys at conference ever to hang out with. And, he and I have had a lot of good times, a lot of good discussions.
Absolutely.
So today we're focused on homeowner acquisition. And I think I have a few loaded questions that maybe we can start down a path. I've been with business development, working in homeowner acquisition, as well as, you know me for years, as long as we've met each other. And I've fallen in some holes. I've stood on some high pillars. It's been a very roller coaster-ish ride to try and bring homeowner acquisition to a consistent growth pattern since COVID. It's been a tough deal. So one of the questions that I have is, what's the biggest mistake most short-term rental companies make when trying to acquire new homeowners? And I'm going to take my own experience out of this.
I mean, it sounds oversimplified, but at the start, I would say you really need to have a strategy. You need to have a strategy, like what types of homes are you going after? How big do you want to be? How fast do you want to grow? What can you support? And then have a strategy about what you think might work in your market. So there's a lot of different life cycles of home ownership, and how am I targeting all those different aspects? So having that strategy initially. Also, I think people underestimate how hard it is to sell. Everybody thinks they sell a little bit, but that closing portion is part of selling. And so really having your story and your pitch dialed in. So, what are you going to do for them? Why should they pick you over everybody else? Yes, the numbers matter. The more organized you can be around that sales pitch, I think the more impressed they're going to be, especially as you're smaller. When you get big enough, there's some reputation, or you have enough referrals from, hey, yeah, don't talk to me, talk to the Joneses who I made a ton of money for last week. You have those opportunities, but when you're smaller, you really have to have your story dialed in. So, do you understand the competitors? Do you understand what opportunities are in your market? And then having that strategy around, who you think the best targets are. I think those couple things are really critical as you start thinking about, okay, how am I going to go about this?
Yeah, no, it's a great point. And I think that I'm glad you called that out. Strategy is mission critical. And one of the things that I find interesting when I deal with some smaller property even some bigger property managers, when it comes to just marketing in general, right? So really what you're talking about is you got to have a strategy, but you got to have value props. So if you were talking to somebody off the street versus going and trying to bring them in online, or the story has to be consistent. You have to have, and it should be almost like a tagline for your company. If you're going to focus your energy on, we're going to be the best maintenance property manager in the area, stick to your guns, stick with the maintenance piece. If they say, well, what about cleaning? It's like, well, we do cleaning as well, but we're really great at maintenance. Not that a lot of people are going to highlight that, but point being, everybody and their brother throws out we're going to make you more money. we're going to make you more money. So what would be some good strategies that you've seen? Like, and does that matter? Does it differ between like I'm 5 going to 10, 10 going to 20, 20 going to 30? Like what are some of the good strategies that you've seen out there that are being used?
Yeah, I mean, it's just like anything. Part of this, you're balancing the size of your business and what investment that you have in it. So, and there's always some trade-offs, but there are solutions that, are almost self-service and taking advantage of technologies from, just relying totally on email marketing, for instance, versus a more robust strategy where you're doing online ads and display ads or even search or direct mail pieces. So you might go through a whole transition of, okay, well, I can start this on my own on this budget and then transition into, okay, I got a couple of homes, got lucky. Okay, now do I expand that into full marketing campaigns where I am doing that multi-prong approach? Because you don't know, you think, okay, everybody's online, but a lot of the people that can afford second, third homes are up the age scale, not always, but up the age scale. So they're less tech savvy and do still check the mail or, just comfortable enough on email, et cetera. So you really have to have a multi-pronged approach. But even just from that, though, I step back and say, it's more about when I talk about strategy, I think about those life cycles. Okay, what's my plan against the existing owners? So there's existing owners. So which ones do I want to target? In most markets, you just look at VRBO lists or absentee owner lists, it's still tens of thousands of people, and it's going to be very difficult to target all those. So how do I figure out what my segment is? What types of properties am I going to be best at or have the best opportunity to win given my current size? So what's my approach for that? And then finding that information about those properties, those owners, and then doing one of those or many of those methods to reach them. After that, you still have an extended life cycle. If you look in almost every market, there's 5 to 15% turnover. So what's my strategy for targeting those real estate agents during that transition? That can be a very productive source of leads. You want those real estate agents in your back pocket because every time they're closing and you're helping them, so you could be paying them, but you're also helping them close on a home by saying, oh, here's what you could expect to earn, from a short-term revenue perspective. So it's helping them, you're helping them, they're helping you, but a lot of people actually remunerate them as well. But what's your strategy for targeting those? And it's not the same for some markets that's not a great thing. Other markets, that's absolutely incredibly necessary. Like the Outer Banks, unless you're paying cash for your house, I don't think you can actually close on your home without having a property manager in place. So you need to be upfront early, or you're waiting at least a year to where they go search for somebody else.
Right,
So
right.
you really need to have that strategy. And then at some point, those properties do sell. So what's my plan and approach for targeting those new owners? Do I want to target them right away? Going back to the Outer Banks scenario, it might not be good to target them right away because you know, they're not going to be available. They already have somebody. So maybe you target them 6 months down the road. Or in other markets, yeah, you want to be targeting that new owner immediately and target them for 6 months. And there's a lot more I can talk about that of why
Sure.
that segment is such a critical segment. Maybe we can come back to it.
Yeah, no, that's a great call out. I mean, one of the things that you kind of fishtailed a little bit, which actually fits into the next question that we have, which is like, what acquisition channels are bringing in the highest quality leads? If you had to say like, this is absolutely what's critical, what's the critical channel?
Geez, it's so hard to say. I see various reports and it varies market by market, frankly. I will say that, again, having the the multi-pronged approach is the most critical versus a single channel. People like the online display ads and things like that. I don't think they get clicked on like crazy, even though we all click on one accidentally every day
Right.
and go to some website that you didn't want to. But they're incredibly valuable for brand awareness. Someone might be seeing your image, your Cabino image 5 or 6 times a day, and then they get a mailer from you and you're like, oh, those guys sound familiar. I've heard of them. They must be doing things right. So
Yeah,
they
it's
all
funny you
kind of
say
work.
that. I actually just had that. I had that happen. It was really funny. And one of the questions I was going to ask about local, like online versus local presence. And the irony was, so Adam and I have this little, I'm not going to say a bet, but it's a friendly competition between online and in person. And his big thing is we got to have the trucks, right? The trucks have to be a literal driving billboard, you know? And I said, yeah. And I get this lady who called in and she's from a town, next town over, super lady, like super lady. And I'm just like, so how'd you hear about us? She's like, well, it's funny. I saw your truck driving around. And I'm like, all
So
right, cool. I'm like, that's terrific. She goes, but then I went online and I saw in the Facebook forums and I saw all your guys' ads popping up. And I'm like, we might as well call these guys. Just
so
like,
you're both right.
we were both right. We were both right. But I'm like, thank God. But yeah, but that's a great point. Like that multi-channel touch
Yeah.
point is important to get through. So I 100% agree with you on that. But in my
Yeah.
mind, like a lot of people push the realtor perspective, but where I'm curious, like how successful have you guys been with your realtor tools? Because for me, it's tough because I'm not a realtor. So when I talk about like how can I help a realtor, what can I do for a realtor? Like me personally, I could definitely help them. I can run analysis for them. I can be a source of information for them. But when I'm pitching to a realtor, it feels like I'm missing something in that discussion. So I'm just curious, like, have you seen a lot of pickup that way?
Oh, absolutely. We see a lot of it. Again, going back to that other thing, online works, but that local presence is critical. Like you said, you're walking billboards. And I think it also depends on the types of owners you're trying to target. The majority of people, I could be oversimplifying, but they're that owner that goes and visits their property once or twice a year. And so they are in the market. They're seeing stuff. They're seeing some other billboard, seeing the truck when they're unhappy with their current property manager. So that local presence is still critical because those people are in your market and they're thinking about their property and they're thinking about next year for their property. So it's a very timely space for it. But like you said, they're also getting back and they're doing research and searching the other 5 people online or the other 10 competitors online.
Right.
So they all support each other and go hand in hand. And like we talked about, maybe I mentioned before, like direct mail still works. There's common perception. They might get 6 or 7 postcards from you or from a couple competitors, and they're an owner. This is a big investment for them. So they don't necessarily just throw those out. It's not
Right.
some random one you got in the mail. It's about their, you know, half a million, million, $2 million assets. So they keep it as research and when they might need it. So they throw them all in the drawer. And at that moment when they're thinking, okay, I should talk to somebody else, you're still in their drawer too. So
Right. It's like a
all
business
these
card.
things kind of, yeah, all these things kind of work together. But back to the broker thing. I mean, Jamie, I think it's still a critical strategy, but one of the things is, you tell them once, tell them twice. The more valuable that home is, you might text them, you might call them, you might invite them for coffee. You're talking about how you can help them of, hey, congratulations on your listing. If you think you might have somebody that might be interested in short-term rentals, I know you can't share those projections on your own, but you can share mine, but they can share your projections. So it might actually help them close a deal. And I know it's very popular to offer a referral type bonus to these people as well. And they've been impacted by some of their changes in the industry. So they are looking for other sources of income. So it definitely works, but it has to be part of all those, the whole life cycle of the different owners at different statuses.
Gotcha. No, that makes sense. So I'm kind of back into the strategy discussion and I'm thinking of, so here I am, I'm trying to put out a campaign, right? I like either maybe I'm going towards like Vacasa because Vacasa just sold, or I'm going towards maybe specifically to Airbnb or VRBO. Is there, when you see messaging going out from a homeowner acquisition perspective, regardless whether it's digital or paper or, are there messages that you see work better than others, maybe targeting like an Airbnb homeowner or a VRBO type homeowner?
Yeah, I think in all of these, it's hard with mailers to be too dynamic and have too much segmentation, but You absolutely, the more you do some segmentation of that list. So I like to tell people, okay, you can use, we have, I won't talk much about OwnerPoint, our owner acquisition services, but you can use our tool to create your master list of 3,000, 5,000 properties that you might be interested. Here's all the information about the property. Here's all the information about the owner. But what's more valuable is to break that list of 5,000 into 50 lists of 100 and be more targeted. Like grab a whole building. If you're into condos, you can see, okay,
Right.
this is one that had a big Vacasa presence, but I can send a segmented message. Oh, I see you're in, Coastal Towers, whatever. And then for that particular building, you might have mentioned maintenance is an issue in that building, or you've heard something. And so you can focus some segmentation
Sure.
both about what you know about them as the owner and what problems might exist for them. So that's probably one of the most effective, going back to the earlier question, tool is, yes, you kind of need to do everything, but the more you can be segmented and be precise to that owner about who they are and what their needs might be, the more successful you're going to be.
Yeah, that makes a ton of sense. That makes a ton of sense. Here's just a general question, and then maybe we can pivot a little bit more towards the technology that you guys are using and what you're seeing in the marketplace. Do you think that homeowners care more about revenue, service, or control? Like if all the stuff that you guys see, and I know that each area may be a little bit different, but what's the flavor of the day? Because I see a lot of my competitors are sending out their mailers, and it's literally like they just hit the send button on all the default templates, and it's just it's like there's no customization, right? The fact that they even got the right town kind of surprised me. But what are you seeing out there? I mean, like who's successful and what are they running?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that control's probably the least popular of those, or impacts. For the most part, a lot of people are getting a professional property manager because they don't want to have to deal with everything, and so
Right.
want to be able to deal with less. And you reinforcing that message of this is why you're paying us, is so you don't have to do that and control every aspect of it. Let us be successful for you and make it easy on you. Revenue's always critical. It never goes away from a thought, especially someone early on, if they're, early on, their mortgage is just getting started on that property. So it's critical. Okay, I got to start getting ahead of this. I got to
Right.
make sure the numbers are going to work how the broker told me they were going to work. So that revenue is really important early on. But I think as people mature, they see that there's enough money, they've made money on this investment property, then they start to transition into the other aspects that you said of that service level. How are they being taken care of? How's their property being taken care of? Is it just as pristine when they come down for their visit? What reports they're seeing, how easy it is on them? That service aspect really takes over, I think, by year one or year two. And end of year one and into year two, I think it starts to be a lot more critical once people get over, okay, I'm going to get enough money back out of this. Now I want it to be done the way I want it done.
Got it. Got it. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, it's interesting. I see sometimes it's hard for me to tell. It's part of my Q&A session when I start having a homeowner discussion with them, is just to really see, like I have to ask flat out. I was like, well, what are your goals for your property? What are you trying to achieve? Ironically, though, they'll say their goals are X, and then when you say, okay, well, we can meet it doing this, then they're like, well, but I really think that this other thing's more important in it. For some reason, it always filters back to one of your competitors has a 10% commission. It's like,
Right.
yeah, that competitor wasn't here 6 months ago, and they're not going to be here 6 months from now. So keep my card, do your thing. Just let me know when you guys are ready to go. It's tough. I mean, it's just a tough world. Everybody's trying to, make, a dime out of two nickels. And it's like, if you don't have the funding, that's where it's tough. The reason I asked about the home or the real estate is that, I mean, the price of real estate is just so high. Well, ADRs are plunging, right? Occupancy is plunging. And I'm not saying that anything's bad with the industry. Everybody don't clutch your chest. We're all good. But it's one of those where it's like, it's definitely flattening out. I don't think 25 is meeting the expectations that a lot of our oracles were trying to say, yeah, oh yeah, this is, 25 is going to be a rebound year from 24. Not really.
Yeah,
It's almost the same in most areas.
This is sort of off topic, but I've been telling lots of people this and seeing it now is the best opportunity for acquisitions that we've had since basically since COVID kicked off.
Right.
Because once that boomerang happened, every unit's been booked. And it was all about, how do I squeak out some more inventory to have it? And and if every week of the year, if I'm the homeowner and every week's booked by Jamie, then even if Jamie pisses me off, I'm not likely to jump ship. But
Right.
now, okay, now that if it's down 10%, 12%, everything, it's not fully booked. Some of those things that I let slide before, I'm putting a microscope on and, checking that maintenance, checking
Yeah.
those things that I'm unhappy about, the things that I bottled up for 3 years. Okay, I might shop around. I see that happening right now. If you're thinking about it and saying, well, the industry's slowing down a tiny or it's stagnant, no, this is actually your best window for owner acquisition in
Yeah.
three or
We had
four
seen that
years.
too. We saw a surge of people that were pulling out all the stops, like, oh, you guys haven't done this and you didn't do this and you didn't do this. And they left us. We're seeing people coming back going, we didn't know, we didn't know how good we had it. And, of course we're like, well, come on back, that's okay. It's frustrating for us because, we take a hit on not just on the revenue, but, we take a hit on the cost operations as well. So it's like, but people are starting to move around and, the expectation was set so high during COVID that eventually things are starting to kind of level out a little bit more. But yeah, it's definitely an interesting world. Well, let's pivot a little bit to some of the tech stuff because you and I have talked over the years in different platforms. And tell the world a little bit about your platform. I want to tell them about what you guys do and where the value add is for a property owner.
Yeah, thank you. So, you know, our core owner acquisition product is called OwnerPoint. So we can go into any market in the US and say, here's every property, here's every owner, here's the owner's contact information, here's details of the property, here's some other details about the owner. Are they an investor with multiple properties? How many of them are properties are on VRBO? Usually in most markets get STR license when that's an issue. And you can make those targeted lists of, okay, here's my list of 5,000, but here's my segmented list of 100, 50 lists of 100, so I can have this information. So it makes it unbelievable. Literally in seconds, you can create all your targeted lists, minutes we'll call it, because there's some email steps. But then what do you do with it? So that's where we came at it from. Here's all the data all the time and refreshed monthly instead of just sort of a static list of saying, okay, I have a list of 1,200. I'm going to beat that to death. You have all the data. If you see some opportunity, like a new building you heard a rumor about was struggling because of a particular PM, or you knew a PM was struggling with maintenance issues, well, you can make your targeted list and start messaging that. You have full control over all your data, which is really nice. Then we give you multiple options about what you do with it. If you're on a shoestring budget and want to do just email marketing, you can take that data, just push it straight into a CRM. We partner with an international CRM, but we built a lot of integrations to make it really easy to use. And we basically charge you the bare minimum that it takes to that we can for using that service. So we really make it easy to use that data. Grab a list of a building, grab a list of the $4 million and up properties in your market, push that list into the tool, and you can start email campaigns right there. You can connect with all your social media profiles and do either broad or even very specific targeted social media ads, so you can spread your social media budgets a lot further that way. We also have, full campaigns like I mentioned before, where you can target those existing owners. Okay, here's my list of 1,000 or 2,000 people. We'll design and work with you on some of the key messaging and say, okay, we're going to send direct mail pieces, not just postcards. Other more elaborate pieces tend to get some more attention, but those emails as well, and then digital ads, display ads. So having that multi-pronged approach, we can enable you to do that. One of my favorite campaigns is one we designed called First Contact. And this has been out about 8 months, and we're seeing very good results with it. So what we do is you can say, okay, there's 30,000 properties in my market. I'm only interested in these 4,000. Forget who owns it today. I care about who owns it tomorrow. So I will track your wish list of properties against the daily recorder sales. And if I have a match, I will automatically trigger a 5 or 6 month campaign to that brand new owner. So we talked about those life cycles before. Do a campaign to the existing owner, have a strategy to target the brokers during the process, and then literally day one of the closing of that new sale, as soon as that hits online, we're targeting that brand new owner. I almost want to call it there's a first contact and there's a second contact for some of the reasons Jamie said. Sometimes it's just as good to be second. I hate to say it, but
sometimes you're right. I mean, yeah, because you could be, the first one gets beat up pretty good, and the second one, all of a sudden, it's like you never hire the first candidate.
Yeah, and I tell people though that first year is critical to stay on. You're not just trying to send them a couple pieces for a week up. I didn't get them, because so many things happen in that first year. Their job status changed. That's happened to people all the time. Now they can't work from the beach. They have to be back in New York City at JP Morgan Chase. Marital status changed. The kids made a travel soccer team and they're not getting to their vacation home every weekend for whatever reasons. Their usage patterns changed. They did have an upset with that first PM because of mismanaged expectations. So all those things are going to happen. When I look at a list, we talk about different strategies. One of the first lists I always pull up is show me all those absentee owners that have owned it less than 1 year. And then I target around those specific messages, because I know that 30 to 50% of the number might only be 200 people met that criteria, but 30 to 50% of them are going to talk to a different PM or their first PM. So, you need to understand those life cycles, but our tools can help you do that. That first contact is very slick about, targeting them right away, and it's all automated. We will work with your existing websites, build that all out, design it, get your input on it and approval. We work with you to have your wish list, and boom, it's just running in the background. You get notified. So people that don't have time to do acquisitions, well, you could be contacting the brokers automatically. You can contact the new owners automatically with tools like ours that exist in the market.
No, and that makes a ton of sense. It's interesting. You talk about the life cycle of, of that, where there's a certain time frame. What do you base that on when you think about it, and how do you set those up? So I would assume that it's one thing to say, okay, I'm gonna create a target audience of, people who have purchased a home in the last 6 months, and I am going to focus a specific campaign to reach out to them at the 6 month point, because maybe they brought somebody along for the ride when they bought the house. How do you look further in the past to see if it was a rental previously, or how do you delineate that?
Oh, how do you say that? Which those owners usually, sorry if I probably wasn't clear. I didn't say that. There's so much in trying to describe that. We target, are they an absentee owner? So I will look at Jamie's wish list, and this sold, but it sold to the Johnsons from Pittsburgh. They're an absentee owner. So we will target those absentee owners during that time period, because you don't know enough about them. They're not even in the full assessor data of, great, we're doing this as fast as possible off of the recorder data. So yeah, we're for this particular type of campaign, we're just looking at that they're an absentee owner. They're not living there. So, because even if they don't even know what their usage might be at that point, they're planning on doing this, but that can change. But that's why you also target them for 6 months. They thought they were going to use it every weekend. They thought they were going to be able to work from there, and circumstances change in that first year anyway. And now they're okay. Yeah, I need to run it now.
So what kind of percentages are we talking? I mean, I'll just give you we're going to hit a list of 100. Like, what kind of percentages do you guys deem appropriate or good, as far as digital, hard copy? I mean, obviously your emails go out. Like, what's your click rates? I mean, how do you determine whether that's working?
Yeah, I mean, on a full campaign to the existing owners, it's weird. might sound low, but typically targeting 1,000 people, you might get 25 to 30 leads and you hope to close 2 or 3 of them. That doesn't sound like drastic growth, but if you look at what it costs to do that campaign and how much those three
Are going to bring in.
homes are
Yep.
bringing in, it's like
It's pretty big.
dropping $1 and picking up a 20.
Right.
I mean, you do that over and over again if that was the result you're getting. Some people just think, I gotta, do this as fast as possible. Well, then have a bigger list, target more, invest more. There's not a magic button of okay, I'm gonna do this and I'm gonna get 50 homes out of this,
So how does
100 or
that work
1,000
when,
target
like
campaign.
we first started talking about segmentation? And this is something that I'm trying to pick through in my brain, right? So I'm going to segment out 5 lists that are 50 apiece, right? Because my message is going to be
Yep.
different. So like, how do you assimilate click rates and things like that when you have a 50-person list, even though maybe your campaign is 1,000, you have a whole slew of lists and the click rates and everything else get kind of skewed.
Yeah, that's probably true. I end up looking at those raw results when I'm going that, you'll find your general tone and theme email that is it seems to be working, and then you're just trying to do some segmentation around a couple of the key messages. It's like,
Right.
insert location, size of property here, kind of thing, and then here's your you're focused on the maintenance in the one, or something like that. So I think you're kind of looking at, okay, you have templates that this template generally seems to be working and resonating, and I'm just doing some segmentation off of it. Or when I talk about segmentation, like you can, like, again, going back to the building example, or you could go and say, I want to pull a map and do the first 2 rows of the beach and do one message.
Right.
Then you might want to do the inverse, take row 3 all the way back to the bay and send the inverse message. The other one, hey, are you getting top dollar because you're in the prime spot? And then the other one is, are you not getting top dollar because you're not in the first 2 rows of the beach? We think we can get more value for your home.
Right.
So
No, that
that
makes
when I
sense.
talk, yeah.
Yeah, I
So
just get
that's what
lost in
I.
the A/B testing, and it's like I have this one, so I'm maybe this isn't a good idea. You tell me. So I'm segmenting, right? Because I'm a Wisconsin guy, right? And here comes a Minnesota boy, right? And we're obviously working out west, but there's a Midwestern flair, and there's a lot of Midwestern folks, and we have a new market down in Florida, and it's one of those where I'm putting together these campaigns where I'm doing outreach, and I'm starting to focus energy around Minnesotan owners, Wisconsin owners, Michigan owners, Indiana owners, and primarily because we can throw some different type of lingo in. Like I can throw some Wisconsinese into my into my commentary and say, like,
Right.
bring your cheesehead back down to Florida. We'll take care of you. Something along those lines. That again, it goes back to that personal thing, but I don't have more than 150 in that list to really aim at. So that's where I'm just like, if I'm playing by the numbers, it almost feels like, you'll get clicks, but it's going to be hard to really tell. It's such a small quantity.
I think so. I mean, but I wouldn't get caught up in that. Again, it's sort of like, okay, this is the style and main points about where I'm talking about us. This is the segmentation, slightly different. You're going to get a sense of, is that email getting opened a lot? Like if you send it to 100 people and 70 people opened it, you're going to know that tone, that size, that cadence, that length of email is something that works for you. And without
Right.
even having A/B testing, you got to mimic that style too. So I don't get it. Frankly, in my own sales, you can call me crazy or lazy. I don't get caught up in a ton of A/B
Okay.
testing. Find something that works. I use my gut. I play variations off of that
Sure.
to
Sure.
make it more
No, and that makes
personal.
sense. Everybody's got a little bit of a different flavor. So here's the next question, and it's always the question that's going to pop up. So at what point in your guys' systems is AI going to start taking place? Are you going to start using AI to generate the marketing templates to help property managers? Because I mean, let's be honest, a lot of times property managers aren't the strongest marketers, right? Because they're
Yeah.
cleaning. they're cleaning, they're maintaining, they're paying bills, they're collecting revenue, they're making sure that the guests have
Yeah.
a happy stay.
So
AI has been real helpful in that way.
one of the things that we did already, and this actually we have it as its own service, but it comes free with our OwnerPoint service, is we created an AI genie that really, and even if you're afraid of ChatGPT, but you can basically think of it as very customized for a property manager version of ChatGPT. So, we took all the extra instructions and put them there around
Right.
running a PM business. So you can give it just a little bit of information and write a property description, or just give it a little information and write a marketing email to guests from Wisconsin. So guests from Wisconsin, or homeowners from Wisconsin. So you can just tweak it a little bit. It's very PM friendly, and you have that. Now, what we haven't done and we're looking at is those responses. So you have a campaign running, you get a form fill. Those responses are automated. Hey, thanks for reaching out. Our team will be in touch with more details shortly. We schedule time. That's not, I don't view that as AI. I think at some point there'll be more sophisticated responses that we'll have in that auto response mechanism. Right now they're, sort of standard workflow responses. So there's a lot of technology that simplifies things and triggers, but punching in that AI that's recognizing a little bit more about them and who that person was before you responded, or fitting that into the response, I think will be helpful.
Sure.
And I can see that as something sooner than later that we'll be able to incorporate in those workflows.
Got it. Got it. So one of the things, and this is one of the last questions, and we'll wrap up here. It's already 40 minutes, and I promised you I would keep it under 45 because I know it's Friday. And I always do this to all my guests, by the way. Matt, you can always go grab a beer if you'd like. It's Friday afternoon.
We've known each other a long time now. Shoot, it's probably been almost 8 years, right?
It's somewhere in
It's
there. It's been a while.
Yeah.
All right, here's the last question, I promise. So let's talk about your OwnerPoint, your dashboards. One of the things that I really liked about what you guys bring to the table is really is that dashboardy feel. Like I can see the UI is just so much easier. It's probably one of the best tools that I've seen so far to utilize. So maybe talk a little bit about that dashboard and how people can use that to really understand what they need to do, where they need to go, and next steps.
Yeah, and it's easier to see than describe, but I'll do my best. And obviously, Jamie knows it. We're always happy to jump on and show you, here's what your market looks like.
Yep.
That's just what you do. You come see what your market looks like, and if that's something helpful. So first off, yeah, usually when you just come into the tool, I can say, here's every owner. You get an idea. Okay, how many homes? How many condos? How many townhomes? How many cabins? How many are sold in the past year? What's the bedroom distribution? Where are
Right.
most of the people coming from? Then every time you build a list, one of those segmented ones, I can say, well, show me where those properties are, because you might see an outlier that, okay, that's on the other side of the bay, or that's too far in the mountains and I'll never get a cleaning crew there. And then I can click on the other button and say, show me where those owners are coming from. And yes, you could have seen that on the spreadsheet, but it's very eye popping to see them spread out all over the country and start to see, oh, I have this local segment here. So let me think about what message goes to those people within 100 miles versus somewhere else, versus from Wisconsin versus from Hawaii.
Right.
And it's very eye popping, and it really helps you form that strategy and start thinking, oh yeah, I do need to message these the cheeseheads a little differently, as you alluded to. The so that's very cool. But we also broke down, you can summarized every condo building in your market, and okay, how many VRBOs, how many absentee owners? All right, download that whole building, push it into the other tool, and start mailing that market. We also broke down all the investors. So we talked about, it's an imperfect list saying, give me every person that's doing short-term rentals, because there's not a master list of that in the country, and by state. Some markets, yes, because they're permitted required, but there's not a master list. And a lot of places there aren't permitted required. So you're frankly trying to even create some short-term rentals. So we have the investor view where we can say, here's everybody that owns 2 or more properties in your market, but they
Right.
live somewhere else or even live in that market. And now you're not just talking to them about like the Smiths from Pittsburgh that have a second home. You know, this person's a little
Right.
more savvy as an investor.
Johnson
So
LLC that has 5, and odds are if they're
yeah,
not owner occupied and they have 5 properties, that means that they are
yeah.
renting.
And so, yeah, you can segment by that. Like, okay, they're, you know, self-managing or more than 5, and, you know, they're being managed professionally, because those are two different messages as well.
Right.
Those people that are kind of do it themselves versus the professional man. So the tool enables you to do all those things in a very visual way, but then enables you to use that information too, because this is, you know, data for data's sake. You know, I was a senior IT guy at American Express for many years, and I always hated data for data's sake. Like, it's not actionable, usable, help me
Right.
create something, then
white noise.
it's a waste of time. It's
Yeah.
just, yeah. So that's what's cool about it. It's very visual, like you described, and can create, you know, help you understand, even create your strategy by what you're seeing, but then it's very actionable. And
Yeah,
that's the
that
right.
is the one thing I will state. Like when I looked at the dashboard, one of the things that helped me as far as utilizing it and taking a look at the dashboard itself was I could play with different variables and just kind of see, like it was very you know, WYSIWYG, if that's still a thing, I don't know. So
Yes.
essentially it's like you can play with it and see where all the stuff is going through, and you can start to pick through, and it does help. And not that I would ever do this, but if you take those variables and plug them into ChatGPT, you can get some pretty good ideas on how to market to that. Because it's, you know, it's true. Like you're saying, I'm looking for homeowners that are this way, this type of house, you know, this is their buying patterns, this is whatever. You throw it into an AI fashion, and they will spit you out some pretty good ideas. So it's definitely out there. We actually have Jen Boyles coming on our podcast in a couple weeks, and I don't know if you attended that class in Austin or not, but she taught the class on utilizing AI for building content within your listings for better direct bookings. So it's one of those where there's a lot of translation that goes back across. You know, obviously, if you're doing direct booking content, you're trying to bring in guests, right, to rent it. But on the same note, that value prop also fits when you're trying to gather homeowners in as well. So it's been a great conversation, Carrie. As always, you know, it's like we can sit here and shoot the breeze for hours. But I'm gonna let you ride on this one because we're already 46 minutes in, and I just want to say thank you again for joining us. I really appreciate you coming on.
Absolutely. It was my pleasure. You know what? I got to tell you, uh, I've been in the industry 8 years. I've talked to probably 7 or 8,000 property managers, so I know a lot about different things. You're always one of my favorites. The
Thanks, man.
VRNation group, the VRNation group is great. Not, they treat me great, but they treat everybody great. We're happy to be sponsors and part of that organization. And you know, anything we can do to help that organization, you know, that's why I'm jumping on as quickly as I can. And this was actually the first podcast I've ever done in 8 years.
Is it really? I didn't know that.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm honored that I am
I'm
the
a
host
sales
for
guy
your
though.
first.
Nobody wants the sales guy. They want the strategy guy. How did I do? Not too salesy?
You did
I don't
great.
think
You did great. Yeah, I was waiting for Larry to come in and pop in over the shoulder a few times, but that's okay.
Having said that,
He
check
says
out cpoint.io for to learn more.
exactly. Well, either way, Carrie, thanks so much for joining us. I appreciate you. For the folks listening, again, thank you for joining us. It's always a pleasure. Hit like, follow on YouTube. If you could subscribe and follow on Spotify as well, it always helps. Please give us a rating, 5 stars. That'd be great. You know, I mean, I don't have to tell you the difference of the 5 versus the 1. You're all property managers, so you should know. 5 stars would be terrific. But again, thank you all for listening and tuning in. And we'll see you next week for another podcast here on VRNation Station. So thanks for again.
Welcome y'all to the VRNation Station. We're diving deep into vacation rental sensations. From management tips to the latest creation, join us each week for some sparkle and conversation. VRNation Station, tune in and feel the thrill.